Welcome to my show. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to Earth School. This is Ascension. This is the hermetic lab of Mother Earth and the reflection of what once was and what everyone's going through to return back to a timeline that we fell from. Everyone talks about the fall, everyone talks about Babylon, but people don't quite understand the frequencies and the timeline and the interdimensional space wars and wars that have been taking place for eons. People say that they come from past timelines, Egypt, biblical times, Nordic, and Native American, and Mayan, but there's a disconnect, and there's a disconnect from spirit and Mother Earth and the universe and everything that once was of heaven on earth and great spirit, due to what came into heaven and what created the fall. There are frequencies that people can't comprehend because they haven't been accustomed. They haven't been the energies haven't been explained to the people because in a sense where because the elders were killed, everybody was killed in ancient history, and there was so much sacrifice because of the demonic ones that came in. So, we're stuck in the matrix. People are stuck in the matrix and not understanding where Mother Earth is, where Gaia is on the consciousness level, due to I put it in the way of, she's been lifted up and out. The feminine had been lifted up and out of the fall, and the balance has returned. The balance has returned to Mother Earth and the masculine and the feminine within the universe, within the sacred waters, within the elements, and so forth. All of the stuff that people have that think of today on a spiritual level is all a hijack, because the people in reality aren't able to reach the frequencies in the place where they're not able to reach Shambhala because spirituality as a whole was corrupted. So that's what these people in the Matrix, were all tribes, all original people, have been perverted through their DNA and through the manipulation of the sacred waters of the divine feminine, of the divine mother. And people today thinking that God is only a male. It's a deep mind control, manipulation of what has taken place over ancient history. So I have this map, and there's a lot of reflection to ancient history on this one map, and it's really, where do you start? Because everyone talks about the here and the now, but people today aren't within the frequency of the truth of the prophecy of Turtle Island, and that is the returning back to Mother Earth, the sacred waters, heaven on earth, great spirit, in the form of the Native Americans, but there's many timelines and there's many different cultures and tribes around the world that all reflect the one unity rainbow, which comes out of the water. And but the knowing and the wisdom of ancient timelines that have all come forth because of what truly is taking place and has taken place since 2012 of the Mayan calendar. It wasn't an end, it was more of returning backwards, going back into time to clean up the timelines and pick up the feminine that were all corrupted, that were all perverted, and the elements and the magic that was hijacked from the feminine and from all the tribes of ancient history. So there's a lot of timelines and a lot of stuff that people can't comprehend because it's an internal path, it's an inner journey, and the ones who have no teachings, the ones who got into the temple, you can put it in the Temple of Judah, or this coming to the Mayan times and getting into every culture is the same as getting into heaven, getting into the temple, getting into Judah. It's getting into creation, and it is the Hermetic teachings. It's the alchemy, it's the symbols and everything like that. But it's coming into our timeline and the little bit of information that we know about spirit and about the elders, because they came, the fall happened, and there's a lot of destruction over ancient history, and people talk about the mud floods, and people talk about other stuff, and it's really, people don't know. And so just the past 100, 200 years is a blur to people, because the consciousness can't, it doesn't know. People haven't done the research, they haven't studied anything, or so us moving back into time, moving backwards and fixing the planets and fixing the Pleiadians, and rebalancing the elements and taking back the pieces that belong to the Divine Mother, and the blueprints of the Mayan calendar and the creation cycle, because what people think of as in temples, Egypt or Israel, those are all just on this modern day timeline. And so going back into time beforehand, you go into the Aztecs, you go into the Mayans, and you go back into time beyond what and there's a whole other world, and that's where the truth is. And the truth is played out on Turtle Island, because they came to Turtle Island, just like they went around the world in other places, but it's drawing the map. It's going back to the beginning of time and moving forward to try and grasp humanity's movement of traveling around Mother Earth, of where everybody was going, you know. And so when I came upon this map, it opened up a whole other realm of understanding, because you have the Akkadian line here, and you know that reflects back into Samaria, and you know, way back into a place that people can't comprehend, just with the little bit of information that they have, but then reflecting it to the Mayan times, going down into Mexico and so forth. So there's that, there's the Native American line, there's the Dragon line, there's the Blue Kachina line, there's, you know, there's multiple pressure points and ley lines, and people don't really talk, actually. They don't talk on the Bermuda Triangle anymore. And the Bermuda Triangle is the pressure point, is the lock of where Etoria links to Turtle Island. It's a porthole to Etoria, it's a portal to New Zealand, and it links, connects to the 13 colonies in the frequency of the 13 dragon bloodline, and so forth. So the whole thing with Florida and the east coast of being Atlantis, and stuff like this, and you look at the color of the ocean, you look at you know, just the way that it is, and then you connect it to what it is in New Zealand, and what it looks like down there, as in, you know, how beautiful everything is. But you know, you look at it's people aren't in the frequency of Mother Earth, and they're not able to understand all of these ley lines and pressure points. And you know, people know of the Four Corners. You know, you have the Blue Kachina that came over the Great Lakes, or came over the Four Corners and then came over the Great Lakes. But what is the timeline of that versus what was coming from the east? Because you have the whole thing with Atlantis and Lemuria, but there's that, and then there's the reflection of, you know, the British War and Europe, and you know, the pagans running and so forth. So people don't know that China attempted to come to the West Coast, as they, you know, they were all coming to the East Coast, but the Blue Kachina destroyed China and blew them out of the water. And so the timeline of this, the Blue Kachina coming over the lakes and stuff like that. Today, you know, you have the Mason-Dixon line, and the invisible ley lines that no one's able to see, and what truly comes out of Philadelphia with the energy of ancient timelines, as in the biblical times in Egypt and everything like that, of why they came to America. People know of these ones that came to America and slaughtered all the natives, came into the Mayan times. You know, there's a lot of misunderstanding, because it's the frequency. It's what is embedded within humanity then and now. It's not that you have all these fairy tales and these stories from ancient history that can't be comprehended, because there's no studying, there's no attempt to understand, and especially not having a map, because you look at the Native American line, and which runs out to Mount Shasta and so forth. But it's, if you're looking at the whole thing of the East Coast and everything east of the Acadian line here, where it is Atlantis, in that reflection. And you come up north and you look at what they have done, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, and, Delaware, and Philadelphia being Delphi. It's just in the name, so there's a lot of reflection that goes back to ancient history. And people can talk on the giants, they can talk on mud floods, but they're not able to see spiritually the Finger Lakes, the Serpent Mound, the Mississippi River, and that how everything on the East Coast, is all that religion. It's the government, it's Rome, because it's all that style, but it's trying to control the people. But and another part of everything within the frequencies of time, of going back into time and cleaning up past timelines, the reflection as above so below, of realigning Mother Earth and Turtle Island with the stars, is the huge part, because the astrological alignment of as above so below, where the stars align to Turtle Island, the stars are on the back of Turtle Island. They were corrupted, and because there was the entrance point into the temple, and the entrance point from Atlantis to Lemuria being coming out of Philadelphia, coming out of this area where the art museum, Philadelphia Art Museum, is in the shape of the Kabbalah. And back in the day, they would set up Philadelphia in the way of a pyramid, and it is built in the shape of a pyramid, of an invisible pyramid with cornerstones and stuff, and everything is Masonic, but it doesn't mean that, the true Masonic lineage of true Masons are the Aztecs, are the Mayans, are the ones who were here before the corruption, because they, the fallen ones, they don't have any elements of creation. They're not allowed, they don't have symbols, they don't have elements, they don't have water, they're not a sun. They're not a sun in the water. So within the frequencies, people look at the Lucy, they look at the fire, they look at Satan, they look at all of this darkness and the AC and everything, demons, and everything is red within that frequency. And, you look into the red, you look into sacrifice, and you look into the past, you look at blood spilt, and you look at sacrificing, the pure white animals, and Jesus spilling his blood, being a sacrifice, sacrificial lamb, and so there's a lot of symbolism, but it's here and now, because the missing timelines, the people running on a different calendar, even if they are trying to find Buddha, trying to find the spiritual path, everything has been fixed of understanding the inner coordinates, the spiritual body, the light body ship, the map, the inner journey. There's only a certain level that people can reach, because you have to go through the fall. Like, you have to go through what you were born from, and that's what people can't grasp, of what they were born from. And when you speak on Great Spirit and so forth. But this whole thing that is taking place today has been a process, and cleaning up all these past timelines, and freeing the ancestors, and tying the knot between the Ouroboros, the head of the Ouroboros, and the tail of the Ouroboros. When you tie the knot of that, because that's the entrance point, and within symbolism and what once was of, there should be a temple in the northeast of America. There's, because they talk on the ones that were in Mexico, but in reality, it's the, where you don't see a temple is where the entrance is. And so them coming out of the water, if you're putting it in the frequency of, Atlantis and everything that came from the east in a Turtle Island sense. So you look at all this stuff on the East Coast, like I said, it's all ancient demonic stuff, but it's the frequency of, like them in the water, them attempting to come out of the water, onto land, climbing the mountain, the mountain on top of Turtle Island, because there's a tree on Turtle Island, and there's a rainbow, and, this East Coast is the collision point between Lemuria and Atlantis, and there's a lot of earth movements and volcanic magma movements and earthquakes and stuff, but there's a lot of spiritual wars and a lot of stuff that can't be comprehended, because it's in spirit, and it's freeing Mother Earth, and taking back the symbols, and there's a lot of corruption of replaying the same stories over and over again to the people, and there's all the mind control stuff, and they have taken away the true origin, the zodiac wheels and the animals and stuff like that, from the people, of really being able to feel the presence of the animals, because Mother Earth was corrupted, crystals were corrupted, animals were corrupted, people worship the gold around their neck, the material gold over spiritual gold. They worship the diamonds, diamonds in their ears, when it's all, what's the difference between a diamond and a crystal? One gives off better rainbow, so it's just all higher frequencies, because there's diamond mines, and so there's diamonds in the ground, and there's within, there's diamond pyramids, and you go into your basic crystals of crystal digging, that's just basic. But then you get into the bigger stuff, the stuff that's underground, truly, in, we'll say, the Gulf of Mexico, and then the Gulf of Mexico, and then the Great Lakes, crystal pyramids, diamond pyramids, and which create a rainbow over the Mississippi, because that is the symbolism that I've seen in my vision. Because people will see heaven, but they will not be able to enter it. That's the same thing with the auroras, because the people don't have the Hermetic teachings of understanding in their awakened mind of Buddha of how a rainbow is created. If people want to be born, people want to be reborn, they're going to have to understand how to get into Mother Earth, how to get back into heaven on earth, because it's the demons within. The demons that are within humanity are not allowed to cross the threshold back into heaven on earth. So this is what the returning back through the fall is. It's returning through Jesus. Jesus is in the blood sacrifice, because he sacrificed his blood. So the people need to pass through him to get back into heaven. Just like if you're going to die, but people are attempting to do it in the spiritual sense today of, returning back to Christ and stuff without religion. But it is a Christed Buddha path. And, Christed Buddha, Nordic, Hindu, African, all tribal, all culture, doesn't matter your color of your skin. The hijacking of Jesus in religion doesn't have a culture. It doesn't have anything that is connected to Mother Earth. It has hijacked everything from every culture around the world, and it has fed it back to people. This we know, but the hijacking of religion is also the hijacking of spirituality. They killed Buddha. The Dalai Lama today is a demon. But people are in the matrix and they can't truly see. They can't see the truth. Every timeline, every country, everything but India. India was, was like the only one left. All the other teachings from Japan and China and voodoo teachings and Nordic and African and Mayan and Native American and Egyptian and Middle Eastern and everything across the board was manipulated, because the medieval times is where the demons came from. All that shit that came out of medieval times and the Europe and but it's all, no one can grasp, because that's not just a timeline. It goes back so much further, and that's back to the Mayan calendar of where we are today, in the consciousness of the divine, the consciousness of Maya's calendar, the birthing cycle, the 9-month cycle, because we know that the Gregorian calendar is corrupted. But if you're returning back to the Mayan calendar, there's stuff. There's a code. And even if I can say it, but it doesn't really matter, because the mind's not able to accept it unless one has been initiated into the Mayan stuff. But either way, the 9-month cycle, birth, if you were to have the twin flame it is 69. Okay, as above, so below. One male, one female. This is the yin and the yang. This is the perfect balance. These are two spirals, as above, so below. Spiral up, spiral down. But you have 9 months. 10, 11, 12, 13. Everyone talks about the missing 13th month. Okay? So you have 9 months, 10, 11, 12. So we'll go with 12. That's 3 months. And then they say the 13th. But the 3 months is actually, that 3 days of darkness. It's wintertime. It's stuff like that. 3 days, 3 months, however you want to look at it. This is the magic of the 3. This is the Trinity. This is the triangle. This is the 33rd degree. This is the 6. This is the 3. This is the 6. This is the 9. And, but the 12, 9 goes down to 3. 10, 11, 12. 12 is 3. Okay? 1 plus 2 is 3. So, and then you would have that. But 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay? 13th moon, 13th dragon bloodline. Nothing goes above 9, which means 13 is not a number. Well, 13 goes back down to 4. 1 plus 3. Okay? You have 9 plus 4. The 4 is the 13th. The 4 is the square. The 4 is the capstone to the Mayan calendar. This is sacred geometry. This is Masonic symbolism of the circle, the square, and the triangle, which is all included within your light body ship, your Merkaba, your chakras, and all this stuff that no one's able to understand because it was all hijacked. This is all embedded within Mother Earth, within the water, within the universe, within the planets, within Pleiadians, within everything that goes around and around and around. But your mind, because this was the hijacking. But we, today, we have moved back to where we fell from. We moved back to the proper cycle of time. And moving forward, people have talked about crystal children and indigo children and, these ones who will be born, into the future that are not demonically possessed. Because if you look at society today and you look at the children today, I'm 50 years old. I'm like the end of the rainbow, true rainbow before it was hijacked. End of the hippie scene, coming out of the 70s. And a lot of people, our age, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70 years old, this was the timeline from, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s of before it was hijacked, where demonic energy was released and came in and corrupted the inner cities within the rap music and and everything you see today. It is what it is, but you corrupt the music, you corrupt culture, and you corrupt society. So the taking back of what was corrupted was fixing the DNA. We had to go into the patterns of the DNA of realigning, because it's the DNA is invisible. So it's invisible. That means that it's in spirit, and so you got to have spiritual eyes of understanding, and the patterns of what it is. It's a long journey. But for the energies to come forth and for all this stuff to be released from the people and from society and Americans not paying attention to what's going on, where you have all of this stuff going on around the world, wars and sacrifice and so forth. Everything's falling apart, but that's people. They hear the words Babylon is falling, but they're not in the frequency. They hear Jesus, but they're not in the frequency. They go to church, but they're not in the frequency. And that's the part where, there's the church came and killed everybody and left people today with no spiritual teachings of where stuck in between time of the ancestors being killed and them trying to introduce a new way of being, a new way of thinking in going into the future, into this AI world. But the people cannot be introduced into a new religion, a new way of thinking today. They must return back to Mother Earth, and they must return back to Turtle Island. But it takes an understanding, an initiation that to understand, because it is the understanding of Christ returning. It is the understanding of what these frequencies are. It's accepting what has been ignored, and it's not even leading up to this time. It's even just these past couple of years of no one standing up and being righteous, no one standing up for no war. It's just the people ignoring everything, going on vacation, going on cruises, flying around the world, and whatever happens, because it truly is about saving creation, and it's the feminine, and it's the child, and it goes back to every timeline, every storyline, every fairy tale of ancient history. But people today, they only speak English, so they really can't understand anything, because within the English language there is no culture, there is no yellow brick road to the end, because everything, all the cultures, original cultures, have all spoke a different language. So we are speaking backwards to other people, and not everyone, but if you go across the pond, you look at Hebrew and Islam and stuff, and who knows other stuff. It's a left to right writing instead of a left. It's a right to left instead of a left to right. And so it goes along with the rainbow, and the as above, so below. But so here we are on Turtle Island with the frequencies of what came into the Mayan times. There was an invasion many moons ago. There has been an invasion throughout the world over these past few years, into Europe, into other countries, and into Mexico and into America, of a demonic nature, where it reflects the battle at the temple door. Okay? Because it's just like the Mayan times of them coming and killing all the people. Same thing Native American. this thing outside wants the blood, okay? Because the ancestors have been freed. And if the ancestors have been freed, the blood has been purified, okay? The Christed blood, the blood of humanity, God's children. There's water in the blood, okay? There's blood in everything. There's water in everything. They have no water. They don't have sacred water. Water is an element. Fire is an element. It must come together. But when there's too much fire, rage, chaos, all this stuff takes place. But this is where the water overrides the fire, which purifies and transmutes into the violet flame and the Christed blood, because the Christed blood is purple, it's violet. But that is the elemental transmutation within the Hermetic lab of lifting oneself up out of the water, because one must reach a certain frequency. They don't have it. They're in the fall. But another thing about the elements is, people talk on the phoenix and the phoenix rising and all of this stuff. And, this is the part of over and over. It's the repeat. It's regurgitation. It's the same cycle over and over, like the Lion's Gate today. And it's just coming back into understanding. We jump timelines. We have to look. We have to look at what is taking place out there. I understand people have taken a break because they can't handle it, but people in America living in third world cities, people have been forced out of their homes. They're living in trailers. They're on the streets. America has been infested and invaded with horrible drugs. Just killing people left and right. And there's so much going on, but it really comes down to, it doesn't matter if you read the Revelations, if you read the Bible over years. It's the can you compare ancient history to today's timeline? That's what it is, of understanding where we are and what the reflection is. Because what is out there, these ones who have, anybody can, get into the darkness a little bit because it's dark. So it being dark, it's part people need to see. So coming into it, we have these religious situations from ancient history. We have these religious situations from ancient history, and they, being bred in their way of warfare and battles, anybody can shoot a gun today, and that's the thing where people get entertained by all of these horror movies, but they're not able to, not just horror movies, but like the Game of Thrones, and can't grasp and understand the energy. And so this thing today that has come into America is the reflection of the Mayan times of attempting to get back into the temple. And so anybody can shoot a gun, just like you see in the hood today. It doesn't matter, skin color. But these ones who, they don't have guns, they use knives. And there's situations where that have been taking place across the pond, where around the holidays, around Christmas, where these terrorists go into churches and literally cut people's heads off. So it's a demonic frequency. These people are demonically possessed and want to kill Christians. You know, even if you're, it doesn't matter your skin color, like I said, it doesn't matter your belief. It doesn't matter. This is the part where people think that if, oh, I'm not a Christian, they won't come for me. It's not even like that. It's just, this is part of it. And, this is the iron shield. This is shape shifting. This is acting invisible in this reality, coming into your higher frequency and, being prepared spiritually for what is to come. It's too much for people to grasp. It's too much to understand, and people will turn away. And I've already known a lot of people that have turned away because, just explaining to people the inner visions and alien contacts and demonic contacts and,